Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm your host, Jonathan Grabowski. It is fall 2022 election season. Join me as a candidate running for District Attorney is our current DA, Tim Cruz. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Jonathan, thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about a wide variety of things here today on the show, but first off, for those that don't know, who is Tim Cruz?
Well, my name's Tim Cruz. I'm the Plymouth DA, and I've been the DA now for 21 years, but I grew up here in Plymouth County. I was born in Brockton. I grew up in West Bridgewater, went to the public school system there, BC undergrad, Suffolk Law, and was given an opportunity to work as an assistant DA in the Plymouth County DA's office in 1983, initially as an intern, and then I worked my way up to being an ADA and was able to handle cases and try cases in the county where I was born, where I was raised, what really meant something to me, where I could see people that I know from the community every day. So that got me going. I left the DA's office like most people do, unfortunately, because of money, really. They just don't pay a lot. I ended up going to private practice for about 12 years and became the district attorney in 2001, and I've been the DA ever since.
Yeah, so you were appointed in 2001, and then you won election in 2002. What made you decide to run?
Well, I was appointed in 2001 by Jane Swift, who was the acting governor at that time. And the first day I'd ever met Governor Swift was the day she offered me the job. I'd never had talked to her before, didn't know her at all. I had that conversation with her. We eventually worked out, we had to shut my practice down in order to do it, so I couldn't do it, I couldn't get sworn in then. But I realized what you can do with this job. And what I've seen since I've been DA, and what I think has been proven since 2002, is that right now the district attorney's office is not your grandparents' DA's office. We do so many more things. We're in front of so many things, and I think that makes a real difference in our community.
What's been some accomplishments in that time since you've been DA?
I think there's been so many that, we've had so many great people that have worked in our office, and I think really the biggest thing the DA's office can do is work together in the community and form partnerships and work with agencies working together, trying to get in front of problems and making sure that we can continue to do that to help the kids that need the help, the kids who come from broken homes, the kids who don't have a mentor in their life, helping them with the resources that we can, helping them keep out of the criminal justice system, helping people in the back end, the reentry programs, people come back to the community, and in the middle you hold people accountable. I think when you do that, you end up seeing a lot of good things. I think that's what we've been doing here in Plymouth.
Great. So jumping in that time machine, what's something that you know now that you wish you knew back in 2001, 2002?
I wish I knew how all time consuming this job was.
Really?
This job is 365 days, 24/7. And make no mistake about it, if you're going to do it, you need to do it right. And I've been on call for the last 21 years. And if something happens, I'll either go, or if I'm out of the county, I'll make sure that it's working out right. Because that's the job. We have a responsibility to people all day long. And when the phone goes off at 2 o'clock in the morning, you get up and go. I think other challenges that you face is I was never really aware. I was never a public figure before this. And when you become even a low-level public figure myself, a lot of people come up to you and say things, and there's a lot of other things that aren't so great. When we have terrible things that occur in our community, and when my house was firebombed here in Marshfield, and I had threats on and off throughout the years, things that I don't think your family's ready for. Right. But I appreciate my family and what they were able to get through these things with me, and here we are.
Wow. So the big question is, why you're here today. So why are you seeking re-election?
I think we've accomplished a lot in the DA's office, but there's so much more to accomplish. As we sit here right now, in the last 7 years, violent crime is down in the city of Brockton more than 20%, according to the FBI data. That's homicides, rapes, robberies, things such as that. Shootings are down 35%. People being shot down 25%, and Plymouth County is in the 99th percentile of safest counties in America. I think we've made so much great ground, and at the same time, we're also driving down the incarceration rates here in Plymouth County. So what that shows me is that the people that are going to jail are the right people, and we can help other people and keep them out of the system. There are just too many plain people in the system, and we have to get them out of it. The best way we can do that, I believe, is be preventative on the front end and helping our children, our kids who have all sorts of issues in our world today, making sure that we can help them as best as we can.
We always like to do a little civics 101 here on the show. So what's the role of the DA?
That's a great question. And when I go out and people ask me that question, I'll ask them, what do you think the DA does?
Right.
And they'll get that vague look, and I'll say, well, do you ever watch Law and Order? Do you ever watch, CSI? And I go, it's nothing like that. That's television. My job as the chief law enforcement official in Plymouth County is to be in charge of the 60-some-odd lawyers that we have working here that work in our 4 district courts over these 800 square miles for the 530,000 people that live in this community, making sure that we get to a just result every day in every case, making sure that victims in our community understand that they have a voice in the community when they think they may not have one, whether it be a child, whether it be a senior. We have a responsibility to stand up for our victims and make sure that they understand they're going to get a fair day. Same thing with the defendants. They have a lot of rights, and that's okay. They've got their attorneys to represent them, but my job is to make sure we get to a just result. And by doing that every day, I think we've been able to continue to go forward, making sure we give people fair trials, fair resolutions, and go forward from there.
Great. So how has the position changed since you were first elected?
Yeah, it's really changed so much. I mean, from the political end of it, from when we used to make lawn signs with wood and paper, and now we're dealing with all these plastic things and this video and digital and all these other things going on. But the DA's office itself has certainly changed, from our phones, from our Nextel phones that we had 20 years back, to the Blackberries, to now the Apple phones that we have, and the communication issues. I think that, the gist of the DA's office is making sure that we can go forward and we can adapt with all this stuff. DNA, from the forensic standpoint, crime labs, making sure we can get the evidence that we need. How can we continue to go out there in a challenging fashion, making sure we get the resources that we need, make sure we get the grants that we need, and we continue to go out. Since I've been DA, we've had more than $25 million in grants brought to Plymouth County, and we take those monies and we put it back into the community, working with partnerships, helping kids, helping the programs that we can, and also helping the violent crime that occurs in the city of Brockton. I mean, we had this year, the last couple of years, we were one of 4 spots in America that got the Project Safe Neighborhood grant, allowing us to put monies back into the city of Brockton, making sure that we can work together in that community, getting additional resources, and going after the people, the small group of people who cause the vast majority of the crime.
So every race has what I like to call that, air quotes, hot button issue. What do you think it is in this race?
Well, I mean, I think that myself and my opponent are complete opposites. I think my position is very simple. I do not believe in defunding the police. Okay. I do not believe in abolishing the police. I do not believe in getting rid of cash bail, which works and keeps us safe. I do not believe in getting rid of life without parole for first-degree homicide, because the victims' lives have been changed forever, and we're dealing with some terrible instances, terrible cases. I don't believe that I should make a decision based on which cases I like, or which laws I like, which laws I don't like, which ones I'm going to prosecute. When you're the district attorney, you take a constitutional oath to uphold your Constitution and the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights. That means you look at every case. Because you know what? Every case is important to somebody. And when a crime happens to you, no crime is too low for it to be looked at. Now, that case may be resolved in diversion, it may be pretrial probation, it may be some nominal event. But every case should be looked at. Because if you look at them, you can make a determination, not based upon the offenses, look at the offenders. That's how you make the right decisions.
You mentioned cash bail in there, and that's a phrase I've heard, in various political DA type races. What is that exactly? Well,
cash bail, when you get arrested for a crime, you'll be eventually brought to court. And if the district attorney makes the determination that we're going to ask for bail, which is a sum of money you have to put up to be released back in the community, then there's a bail argument in front of a judge. And the defendant will have a defense attorney, the Commonwealth will have an assistant DA, and the judge will make the determination. We each will have our arguments as to why we think it should be this, that, or the other thing. Unfortunately, in America today, we have too many DAs, progressive DAs in San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Philadelphia, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, on and on and on. The courthouse is a revolving door, and dangerous individuals are being released. New York itself has a bail reform statute that allows virtually every crime, except for homicides and very serious cases, to be turned around. People can be back out on the streets to recommit and reoffend and hurt people who need to be safe. So to me, the bail, which it's like 17 to 20 things that a judge will look at, including somebody's ability to financially come up with the money, whether or not that'll be one of the auspices they'll look at. That is really important. Because some people, you have to make sure the system keeps going. And if I let you walk out the door and you have a history of defaulting, that means the whole system's going to be screwed up. You're not going to show up the next day. I'm going to have sent subpoenas out for police officers to show up. Money's going to be spent, and the case will not move anywhere. We have a responsibility to make sure that we can make people show up in court. And sometimes the only thing the way that works is through the cash bail.
Right. So you've been at the forefront of the opioid epidemic. So talk about some of the work you've done in that area.
There's so much, and we noticed back in 2013, 2014, myself and the sheriff, that our fatal unattended deaths here regarding opiate deaths were doubled in 1 year. And so then we were watching all these small communities come up with their own little groups. And virtually, you could go to a different meeting every night of the week throughout our county. We have 27 communities. So we decided to put together the Plymouth County Drug Abuse Task Force back in 2015. And really what that is a clearinghouse of bringing information together, best practices together from a lot of people in a lot of groups who are certainly much smarter than I am. We will bring in, we bring in Bridgewater State University. We brought in all 5 of our hospitals in Plymouth County. We brought in faith-based, educational, judiciary, legislative. How can we, educational, and also law enforcement, how can we sit around the table and come up with the best practices and make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel time and time again? The task force has been a remarkable venture to go forward, and from that has sprung a lot of other different things. Plymouth County Outreach, the Plymouth Hub, which is out there right now. And as we sit here right now, as we evolve further into dealing with and helping drug endangered children, kids who are watching and have this terrible trauma in their lives, kids with adverse childhood experiences, we have to make sure we help those children, because if those kids don't get help, they're going to enter the cycles and they're going to be in problems next.
Right. Another area is guns and violence. So talk about some of the work you've done on violent crime, especially when a gun is used.
Yeah, so we have one of the things that we deal with is priority first gun prosecution for crime guns, which means we try to expedite our gun cases through a specialized court, making sure we can get those guns off the street. And the vast majority of the guns that we deal with are not law-abiding citizens' guns. These are crime guns that are either stolen, they're purchased from outside, they're ghost guns, guns that may be out in the community, and we need to make sure we get those guns off. When you do that, and you go after those individuals that are shooting and hurting people and destroying the names of the towns and cities. Violent crime doesn't help a city, and it certainly doesn't bring business there, and it doesn't help people for going forward in their lives. So if you target those guns and you target individuals who are trafficking in guns and selling guns, you can make a difference. And I think, like I said earlier, we've seen over the last 7 years since we started another program, Safe Streets, we've seen our numbers go down precipitously. And I think that's really great, especially in light of the fact where Brockton was when I started back 21, 22 years ago.
Right. So another area is victim advocacy. You've done a lot of work, especially when it comes to families and young children. So talk about things like the Family Protection Unit and the Advocacy Center.
Yeah, we have specialized lawyers for the Family Protection team that deal with all of our very serious cases dealing with child abuse or physical abuse, sexual abuse, human trafficking, CSEC, which is commercial sexual exploitation of children. Dealing with those cases, we have specialized prosecutors with specialized training to focus on those, to help those individuals that are in that cycle. And it happens everywhere. You would hope that there was no human trafficking occurring in Plymouth County, but there is, and it's occurring everywhere. So therefore, how do you get that out? So we do trainings, we go to schools, we talk to police officers. Just did a training last week over in Duxbury, bringing in people who really know what they're doing, former prosecutors who have worked in this world for a long time. And at the same time, we also continue to help the kids because we have a nationally accredited Children's Advocacy Center that we've had up and running for the last 20 years or so right now. And every year, last year alone, we had 1,009 kids who were either physically or sexually abused in Plymouth County. And most of those kids, most of those cases don't go forward from the prosecution standpoint. But what's really important is getting those kids services. Because if you don't get those kids services, today's victim can be tomorrow's perpetrator. Get them services, stop the cycles. Once again, I think that's been a big part of what we're doing. Helping in the front, helping the children, making sure we can put them in a position where they can succeed, especially the high at-risk kids. And when you do that, I think the whole thing works together.
So you used the word cycle, and I've heard you use the phrase breaking the cycle on numerous occasions. So talk about what you're doing to make sure that first-time offender doesn't become that repeat offender.
Right. We have so many programs, diversionary programs, and pretrial probations to help kids. We realize that when kids are young and irresponsible, they're young and irresponsible. Diversion is nothing new. I mean, some people on the other side just talk about diversion like they created it. It's been around for 40 years, and it's been used in a variety of ways by different DAs throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the United States. So you help those kids, and you also make sure they don't get arraigned, so therefore they don't get a criminal offender record. So when they apply for a job, when they apply to go to college, they don't have to say, I've got a criminal record, I was charged with this, but it was dismissed. Nothing happens. They go into the court system, they don't get arraigned, they're going to be given hours that they have to do in the community, and they're also going to take some courses, usually online, helping themselves. When they complete that, their case is dismissed prior to arraignment, and they don't get a query. And so this has been thousands of kids that have not gotten criminal records as a result of this. And I think it's helped a lot of these kids. The vast majority of the kids that we divert, we never see them again. And that's great. That means they made a mistake when they were young, and their lives shouldn't be wrecked because of that.
Two other items that you've been working on is the drug court and the veterans court. Talk about those.
Those once again are avenues to go once you're in the system. And when you're in the system, and if you are dealing with drugs, or if you are a drug dealer, if you are somebody who is using drugs, or if you're doing other crimes because of the fact that you're addicted to drugs, you can go to the drug court, and that's very intense. And many times when you talk to the judges who run the drug court, they'll tell you sometimes the best thing that happens to the people that are in it is them flunking it and going to jail because they don't want to go to jail. And they learn that when they go for a short period of time. The drug court is very intense with their probation officer, getting treatment, making sure they can do everything they can, random urines, random blood tests that occur all the time to make sure they can stay clean. I think that's been so positive for us. Every court in Plymouth County has a drug court, and our Veterans Court is once again trying to help people who have served our country who have made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Can you help them? Without destroying their lives also, because the men and women, and I have the ultimate respect for the men and women. My son was in the Army for 12 years, and I see what it's like for the young men and women who work over there, who make sure that we're free because they're brave. That's the way that it works, and I think that we have to make sure we do that and to help the vets here in our community.
So, you're known for community outreach. The DA's office is really known for that. Is there a program or two that really stands out to you or is really special to you?
I think one that was one of our first ones was probably 15 years back or so, and we didn't really have a good name for it. We called it the Red Letter, and we kind of took it from some other place, and we were using it. And really, all it is it's now called Handle with Care. And what Handle with Care was if something happens in a home in the middle of the night. We had a case in Brockton where some drug dealers were going to steal and rip off another group of drug dealers. They went to a 3-family home, they kicked the door in, and they went to rip off the drug dealers. But the problem was the drug dealers were on the 3rd floor, not the 2nd floor. There was a mom and her 3 kids. They pistol whipped the mom, they pushed the kids around. And the next day, where do those kids go? The drug dealers leave that night, the police show up, nobody gets arrested. The next day, those kids go to school. And when you go to school and you're 12 or you're 10 or you're 8, you think the whole world knows what you do. And in actuality, you walk in there and nobody says anything to you. So they don't focus on you. Mm-hmm. So, from that instance, what ended up happening, that little boy, the 12-year-old boy, told his friend what happened. The word gets around school, and by the time it reaches the school principal, it's that kid had a gun in his locker, which of course wasn't true. Police show up, and they found out about this. So we developed Handle with Care, and Handle with Care basically, because there's so many privileges and things you can't talk about, if something traumatic happens in that town, that town is going to be notifying the school the next day, and all they say is, Tim Cruz, handle him with care. And the teachers are going to be trained to be trauma sensitive to help these kids, these high at-risk kids. Even the custodians will be trained. So they can try to help them and focus on that child to get them the services that they need. And if that child needs more than that, they know where to send them also. Because sometimes it's more than what a teacher can handle.
So you mentioned, another thing that you mentioned a while ago was, you brought $25 million in grants into the district. Is there a grant program that you're proud of as well?
I think I'm proud of all of them because of the fact that when we bring them in, we have grant writers, we have people that work together in the community to see what we can do. Whether it be Project Safe Neighborhood, Weed and Seed, Project Safe Childhood, our federal grants trying to on the law enforcement side versus dealing with the drug issues and the drug-free community grants, which we've been able to work and get hundreds of thousands of dollars for individual towns and making sure that they can get those monies and work prospectively in their towns themselves. As we go forward with that, I think that's been a very positive thing, and we use those monies for a variety of issues when they come through. If we can use them also, we have a drug education camp every summer, except for pre-pandemic. 600 kids will go to that and make sure that they can go and have a good time. All these monies go back into our community, and I make sure we never take the administration fee. All the money goes to this so that we can go out and work on the front end regarding the violent crime, work on the back end with the restorative justice and making sure people who are getting reentry programs at the jail are going to come back and get the education they need so they don't reenter the system. And in the middle, we're going to continue to do our job.
It seems like you're doing a lot of proactive work. Has that increased dramatically over the years? What's kind of the level of prosecution versus doing proactive and stopping people so they're not going to jail or?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that, the world has changed for us. The caseloads haven't gone down at all. The cases are still there.
Right.
The proactive, preventative stuff really has changed. And now we have an obligation. And when we see something that's not being done, I think, I go out and I've talked to many people whose job I believe it is to get in front of these things. And sometimes they may not agree with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it ourselves. Whether it be not having any money, no grants for our Safe Streets Coalition that we started 8 years back. We have any money for that. We put that together when we watched our numbers go down in the city of Brockton. We same thing with all the other the grants that we're dealing with for all the drug issues right now. Drug endangered children is a huge issue. And when you look across the country and you look and see how many prosecutors are involved in drug endangered children, you're not going to see many. Because of the fact that when you look here in Massachusetts, I think there's two of us, myself and DA Joe Early out in Worcester. And he sees what we're doing here, and he also understands the importance of getting in front of the kids who are high at risk, making sure we can break that cycle. And I believe that by doing that, I think we've made a big difference here in our community. And once again, I don't take credit for everything. I certainly don't, certainly not me. It is certainly, I think the ability of the DA to make a difference in the community is bringing large groups together and talking about the issues that are there. The police chiefs who endorse me, they know they can pick up their phone and call me 24/7, and I'm going to be there and I'm going to answer them. So with all the law enforcement endorsements, all the public safety endorsements, I think that we've earned those. And I think that we'll continue to work together with them, making sure we can all work together to keep our county safe.
So if reelected, what's a priority?
I think one of our ongoing priorities is to continue to work hard on the DECI and the drug abused children things, and also making sure that we continue to work on recidivism issues, trying to develop residential programs for individuals before they recidivate and get back in the community. Some people talk about mass incarceration, which is absolutely not true here in Massachusetts. I mean, the incarceration rates in Massachusetts in the last 10 years, Department of Correction, which is the most serious cases, Susan Baranowski, Cedar Junction, those have gone from 12,000 to 6,000, down almost 50%. The House of Correction numbers with Sheriff McDonald's at, in the last 10 years, they've gone down 79%. They have less than 100 people actually doing time down there. So when you look at those numbers, and yet our violent numbers go down, the right people are in jail, because you know what? There are people in this world that we need to help who have drug issues. There are people in this world who have mental health issues. We are the depository of that. We need to help those people, and we also need to make sure that the people who are out hurting people, they need to go to jail.
So we're on the home stretch here, so we always like to have some fun toward the end of the show, because we always talk about sometimes some heavy issues, so try to lighten up. So what's a Tim Cruz fun fact?
The only thing I do really for fun is that I have for the last 15 years or so, I went back to playing hockey. So I play hockey at the South Coastal Hockey League in Pembroke, down Hobmock Arena. I still do that. And as I tell everybody, the only difference between me, I get a lot slower. I take a couple leave before I go on. I take a couple leave when I get off to heal the old body. But it's really great for me to go out there with those guys. And it's the only hour of the week my phone's not on me when I'm on the ice. So for that 1 hour, I need to be left alone.
Great. So in the movie about your life, who plays you?
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, obviously, the only person that could play me is somebody who has a similar name, and that would be, according to the girls in my office, Tom Cruise. Although he spells his name the wrong way. But obviously, I have a face for radio, and that's always a challenge. But it's always fun. The people in my office are great, and they do a great job, and they certainly feel free to poke fun at me when they can, and that's all right.
Great. If people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
To find out more about the office, go on PlymouthDA.com, and you'd be shocked at the things that we've done over the years, I believe. They're very preventative things, and the monies we've brought in and where it's gone. It's all there. It's all transparent. It's all right in front of you. If you want to find out more about the campaign, look at datimcruz.com. And you'll see all of our endorsements, our public safety endorsements, our professional firefighters of Massachusetts endorsements, our local 7 from the steelworkers endorsements, the 50 or 60 endorsements that we have, Commissioner Gross, Commissioner Davis from Boston Patrolmen's Union, all these different endorsements. And I think that tells me that they believe that we're doing the right thing down here, and that by continuing in this fashion, we continue to keep people safe.
And last but certainly not least, why are you the best candidate for the position?
I think, as I've stated, which you can extrapolate from what I've said, I think this is where I'm from. I'm not coming here looking to use this as a stepping stone for some other job. I've been the DA now for 21 years, and I'm getting near the end of my career. I'm not near the front of it anymore. I've never looked at it as that. I've never looked at it to try to bring in general statements about what I want to envision. I have to deal with the realities of the world and put together programs. And putting together those programs, you can make a difference. We've done that here. We've done that here for 21 years. And quite honestly, as I go and talk to other DAs across America right now, they can't believe the things that we've done here because it's so progressive. I may not be a progressive DA, but I am progressive with all the things that we do, helping our kids and helping our community. So I think by far, me working together with the police, keeping people safe, making sure that I do my job and not somebody else's job, I think that makes me the best candidate, and I think people understand that.
Well, Tim, we want to thank you for joining us today and wish you the best of luck on this election season.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
That's all the time we have for Meet the Candidates. Until next time, make it a great day.